Well, a controversial new ATF regulation has had numerous lawsuits filed against it. Last month, the federal agency issued a new regulation that would require owners of pistol braces to register those with the federal government.
It means millions of gun owners could be breaking the law if they don't act within the next 120 days.
Let's talk about all the crazy stuff the ATF is doing, and I've brought in an expert on crazy. Tom Grieve, noted criminal defense attorney, former state prosecutor. Tom, it's been all over the news. The ATF is doing the things because
all the things
reasons.
Some of the reasons.
Yeah, well, pistol brace is probably the big one that folks are talking about. I see this as something that's going to go up and down this chain of command and be challenged all over the place. Right now, pistol braces are not legal, and you have 120 days to take them apart, turn them in, register them, something. What else is going to happen?
With respect to pistol braces?
Oh, just in general.
Oh, just in general? like what is the ATF going to do next?
Yeah.
Or just what's some updates on things that have been going on?
Let's have some updates on what's going on because, and folks, if you're watching, you are because you're hearing me make the mouth noises. Tell us if you want us to do a more complete video on any of these topics down in the comments. Go ahead, Tom.
So there's these things called pistol braces, which were approved by the ATF rulings both in 2012 as well as 2014 as being lawful to possess, purchase, transfer, all that kind of good stuff, as well as to shoulder. That was specifically the topic of the 2014 ruling. And depending upon who you believe, the Congressional Research Office said that there might be as many as 40 million of these devices.
There's a lot. I've seen some.
I've seen a couple myself. And the ATF said, you know what? Let's make it a felony.
Yeah.
To, attach these to pistols.
We changed our mind.
We changed our mind. We're calling backsies, and they played the Uno Reverso card, and now you have 120 days starting from January 31st to, as you said, destroy, detach, and permanently alter your brace so that it cannot be reattached.
Ooh.
You can alter the barrel length of the pistol. You can register it as an SBR. You can turn in the weapon to the ATF. Now, of course, keep in mind, or to other law enforcement, that many folks in many states cannot lawfully acquire an SBR. So the significance of that is that is a dead-end option to them.
Yep.
They've basically just lost the device that maybe they spent, a fair amount of their hard-earned money on. So the ATF has flip-flopped. They've left a lot of people out in the breeze, and, here we are.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that there's just a ton of crime that's happening because, these pistol braces are not causing crime to happen. And the one thing that you said out there, take your pistol brace off and then modify it so you can never put it back on. So all the people who are thinking they could just pull that pistol brace off, put it in the corner of their basement, and when the revolution comes, they'll have an easy-to-carry firearm.
So I did a video on my channel, Attorney Tom Grieve, where I'm talking about constructive intent and constructive possession. So in other words, when do parts become guns, and how do you have to disassemble everything? I'll give you the super short version of that video now. Check out my channel if you want the longer version one. The short version goes like this. Parts can become guns when they're in close proximity to one another, and coming from a U.S. Supreme Court case, Thompson Center, which is from the early 90s, they can be assembled into no lawful configuration.
Okay.
So you have to be very careful about how you actually store things, both with the proximity and what else you store it with, because if you do this wrong, you're in violation of the SBR laws, which, oh, by the way, 10 years prison.
Yes.
That's what you're looking at, okay? And that's, by the way, also per firearm. So problems.
I'm just doing some simple math.
Yes,
Yeah.
You're right, yeah. Carry the two exponents, we got some multipliers, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no, it gets pretty ugly pretty fast. There are no grandfathering provisions with this, so you're just stuck, right? There's no grandfathering provisions, no apology, there's nothing. About the only thing that they're sliding people who do live in states where you can lawfully E-Form 1 your SBR. And again, if you want more details about this, let us know in the comments box below. But the only thing that you can do, or that they are giving you, is it's a free E-Form, so you don't have to pay the $200 tax stamp. Although I will note that I have seen information that, in essence, the ATF is calculating this will cost the average person about $133. So if you want to know more about that, again, where do they come up with this information in their RIA documents? Again, let us know in the comment section below. But right, and you know what? If you missed the memo, if you don't live in an area, if you live in a rural area, you're not on the interwebs all that much. You're seeing this on your nephew's phone, hopefully within the 120 days or something like that. Yeah. Congratulations, you may be a felon.
Oh boy. And bump stocks are out there, and a lot of other, on the bright side, the Representative Gates down in Florida has decided that he wants to disband the ATF. So that's ATF news we can talk about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not trying to obviously clamp down on that sort of stuff. But I'm going to say it's the equivalent of virtue signaling, because it's absolutely dead in the water. But importantly, and that's just, I shouldn't compare it to virtue signaling, because virtue signaling to me is an ugly word where it's like end poverty. It's like, well,
of course,
okay, what are you doing about that, right? But here, the significance of that is that the more egregious the ATF conduct gets, eventually political winds will blow in a more pro-2A direction, and there may be some consequences down the line. We'll see. I mean, maybe not, but we'll see. So it depends if they kind of keep up on their current warpath of flip-flopping. And by the way, there's all sorts of other examples of the ATF flip-flopping. This is just the most recent one. You mentioned bump stocks, where there was approximately, and I may be wrong on these numbers, but I mean, there were many tens of thousands of bump stocks out there. And I think last I saw, there was maybe 580 that were turned in. So there's a lot of bump stocks out there that are all now, according to the ATF, machine guns to be in possession of. Illegal machine guns.
Illegal machine guns.
Keep in mind, there's about 180 some odd thousand lawful machine guns, what we would call pre-86 transferables, that you are allowed to lawfully own. But yeah.
Wow. Before we go on to home-built gun kits, I'm sure that's rolling around out there. We have a super secret giveaway going on right now that you can enter for free, but it ends really soon. Just click the link in the description below to reveal what it is. And here's a hint. It's gun-shaped. So we're also talking about the homemade firearms, the gun kits.
The PMFs, private manufactured firearms.
Privately manufactured firearms. That's something that's still out there as well, and the ATF is getting all over that.
Yeah, the pistol, receiver frame rule, all that kind of stuff. So for those of you who are new to the party, there was a question of when does this chunk of plastic or metal or whatnot, which is vaguely in the shape of a firearm, but it's also definitely not, you can just drop in pieces and it's a functional firearm. At what point does that turn into a firearm? And the ATF basically said, when it's 80% manufactured or 80% down the road, now we have a firearm. It's got to go through FFL, 4473s for transfer, all that kind of stuff. And then
more importantly, it has to be marked with a serial number.
Oh, absolutely, anytime you manufacture a firearm. And then seemingly the ATF has completely walked that back. I mean, they have and they haven't, and it's a real chaotic mess right now.
It seems like the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is just in the business of confusing us.
It's worse than that, because it's not just approving something, letting tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands or even tens of millions of people purchase these devices and then walking it back. It's walking it back and putting penalties of, oh, by the way, if you didn't get the memo about our walk back, because it's not like they're sending people letters or stuff like that. I mean, they sometimes do. That's the FRT triggers, the force reset triggers, right? But if you miss the memo, prison. Prison.
Yeah, suddenly you're a felon because what you had was legal before and it's not legal now, and it's legislation through bureaucracy. They're just making a rule, and in the case of the the Form 1, the $200, it's a tax. They didn't have to route that through anybody else. They just wrote a rule.
So that, I think, is a great segue when we're talking about updates of another update, which comes out of the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. So that's based out of Louisiana. There's a case called Cargill v. Garland, which said that, look, at the end of the day, and again, if you want the full breakdown, let us know. I also covered on my channel as well. But what they said is that the ATF is not in the business of passing laws. It is in the business of rulemaking. And in essence, they are overstepping their authority to determine, on the one hand, bump stocks are good to go. They're not a machine gun, explicitly stated by ATF. And then years later saying, oh, by the way.
Yeah, the political wind shifted.
Political wind shifted. There's different appointees in power, and suddenly everything's a felony, right? You can't do that, in essence. There's more to that case. There's a lot of nuance I'm leaving out, but just for the sake of kind of a quick hits roundup, that was the gist to it. So that is being appealed. I'm sure it's going to go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. We will see where that goes. But the bottom line is, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with the ATF's ability to do rulemaking. At the end of the day, they have an enormous amount of discretion to classify all these new devices that come out, as whether it's an XMG MG34 upper for an AR-15, the Aikens accelerator stock. I mean, I can go on and on and on of all these devices where they're like, yep, good to go. And then suddenly, nope, we're changing this. It does an enormous amount of damage economically of destroying the lives of the people who were relying on their initial rulings when they decided to go ahead, I'm going to invest my whole life and all my savings into building a product for X. It's wiping out distributors, stores, supply chains, you name it, who are built around that. It's also, of course, wiping out the hard-earned dollars of Americans who, in essence, get duped into purchasing this, relying on the government's decisions that, yep, this is lawful to possess. So it's enormously damaging, and we'll see how long they're able to get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to have to work its way through the courts. We're going to have to be vocal and protect our rights, because if we don't, they're going to go away.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Tom. Always great insight. Appreciate having you here.
Thanks, Kevin.
It's a true story of self-defense. We interviewed an armed Lyft driver who was carjacked to help answer these questions. Should I carry a gun while driving? And what does a carjacking actually look like? Just click the video next to me to watch this must-see interview.